If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Time to sharpen those swords. You're listening to Sabres Semantics, a hard-hitting interview and discussion show featuring players, alumni, media, and all others who have or still cover the NHL's Buffalo Sabres. With interesting stories from the past and current objective analysis, this show is sure to provide an entertaining and unique perspective for both Sabres and hockey fans alike.
Oh, brother, we are not worthy!
Exclusively on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Now, here's your host of Sabres Semantics, Brandon Caputo.
Welcome into another episode of Sabres Semantics right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, proudly brought to you by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work in Niagara since 1983. Check out their updated job board at ehc.on.ca to find your next work opportunity today. Brandon Caputo and Austin Broad are back with you in audio only. Some technical difficulties in video, but we are going to record this episode hearing the end-of-season press conference for the Buffalo Sabres, but with Kevyn Adams, general manager, and head coach Lindy Ruff. We're going to get our thoughts on the presser itself, interesting moments that we thought that they talked about. Obviously, the Sabres missing out on the playoffs for a 14th straight NHL season, and heading into another important offseason, sort of what the outlook is after what are Lindy Ruff and Kevyn Adams, the guys that are going to be leading the team into the future. We'll have to wait and see. But again, this is just initial reactions to the end-of-season press conference and some of the exit interviews as well. Thank you to those listening on your favorite on-demand audio platform. Give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. So, Austin, again, the press conference just ended about half hour ago at the time of recording this. Interesting, I guess, thoughts from Kevyn Adams. Nothing completely new from what we've already heard from him after the trade deadline or after that emergency press conference early in the year and after the 13-game losing streak. Obviously, Sabres miss out in the playoffs. That's number one. They did play better down the stretch, but again, 14th straight season as well as they played. In those last 20 or so games. It's not going to get it done, and it's not going to be good enough for the fan base. And, we'll hear from the comments from Lindy Ruff and Kevyn Adams as well. But, I guess I'll just open it up to you on your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, so I will say the first thing that jumped off the page to me was a lot more somber of a tone from Kevyn Adams than I think we're used to hearing when he talks. Now, I don't know if it could be a number of things, right? It could be the weight finally starting to take the toll on him, right? Because he's now had his 5-6 year hand in this. That's 33. That's a third of the drought is now he's solely responsible for. I don't know if that's because the last time he showed emotion in a press briefing, it came back to bite him in the butt with the whole palm trees thing. I don't know what it is, but he definitely did not show the same emotion. Sound like a guy not for the first time, because I think but he sounded like a guy who is out of answers, right? Like you said yourself, how the substance, there was a few things worth noting here and there, but the substance of what we heard from him today really has not changed. I need to be better. We need to be better. Cool. You've needed to be better since you took over. The rebuild, quote unquote, it's now the third straight season of where it was win now. And, you know, he said it himself. Words don't really mean anything, which is true. It's very true. The words don't mean anything. Actions mean something. But it's now been 3 years of we need to win now and get into the playoffs where his actions have not been in lockstep with the message that he's sending, right? 3 years ago, they missed the playoffs by 1 point. And to an extent, don't blame him for banking on internal growth. Came back, bit him in the butt. You know, last year, Granato's last year, Jack Quinn's hurt, tears his Achilles in the offseason. We know he's out until at least December, January. At the time, Quinn was penciled in as a top 6. There was a gaping hole in the top 6. He just didn't address it. This year, that top 6 was still needed. Went out and signed a veteran forward in Jason Zucker. Remade the bottom 6. And, you know, Zucker turned out to be really good. He's going to be here for a couple more years. He got McLeod. McLeod is a RFA who sounds like, you know, he said he's open to a long-term deal, which should be a slam dunk in my opinion. Zach Benson and Kulich grew into those top 6 roles. But he didn't really address the top 6 and heading into the season, and then failed to address it again in the midst of a 13-game losing streak. And it finally wasn't until the trade deadline where he traded Dylan Cousins for Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard-Docker. And, you know, we'll get into that probably at a different time, but we still don't know what Norris is going to bring to this team. But I guess that's looking like the top 6 addition they're going to sell to this team, which is fine. But it's just, man, like, at some point, what are we doing here with this guy still being in charge?
They were 12 points out of the playoffs this season, Austin, behind the Montreal Canadiens, who were a very pleasant surprise. It was a team that was supposed to be, you know, continuing their rebuild, and they ended up making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Buffalo, all they had to do was not lose 13 games in a row, and they would have been right in this thing. When you look at it, if they get half of those points, they're right around that 91 points that they would have needed to get in that final playoff spot that New Jersey and Montreal, you know, basically held at the end of it when it was all said and done. But, you know, just way too inconsistent. We're going to get into the presser here very shortly. But, yeah, it just leaves another sour taste in your mouth because down the stretch they went 12-8-1 after the trade deadline. And they had a 5-game winning streak in that during that time. James Reimer played 11 of the games. UPL played 10. And actually played pretty decent. We saw the team improve in a lot of areas, but we did see when they lost, they got blown out because, again, their goal differential was 69-4-73 against in those games where they went 12-8-1. So it was more times than not when they lost big in more of those games. But there were, you know, stretches like that 5-game winning streak looked good, and then they would have a really good game, and then they'd lose to like the Philadelphia Flyers, and you were wondering what the heck happened. Score 8 against Washington Capitals was another one that jumped off at the page to me. I know, you know, they lost 4 of their last 5 to end the season, but when you look at it, they did play better down the stretch, and you did see things improve, but, you know, at what cost, right? Because there will be the part of the fan base that said they should have just, you know, tanked and got another top lottery pick, which they've done multiple times for the last 14 years. Or the other crowd that says, give them some momentum and make sure the culture's in the right place, ending the season on a high note and giving them some momentum going into next season. So, you know, whether you're on either side of that fence or you're in the middle somewhere, I really don't think, you know, getting a top 4 lottery pick was something that they wanted to do, given the amount of times that they've kind of done that. I think they wanted to play better down the stretch, but again, it was just a little too late.
Yeah, the draft pick thing is I don't necessarily think there's a wrong side to be on. I'm on the side where I could care less about their draft pick. Mostly because in my brain, and I know this sounds dumb, but in my brain, they're not a good team. Let's be honest, they're not a good team. But to me, they're not a bad enough hockey team where they belonged in that bottom 3-4. The 13-game losing streak forced them into that neighborhood. Obviously, and you are what your record says you are, but I just think on paper they are a below average team. But to me, they weren't with the San Jose's of the world. So that's why I was like, I could not care less about the draft pick. Like, I know you don't necessarily get good packages for top 10 picks, but in my brain, that draft pick should merely be an asset to try and help improve their team. I've thought that last year, and I think that again this year even more so because. What are we doing here with another draft pick? Like, we already got, you know, tons of young talent that We don't know exactly what they're going to be, but the Sabres don't need young talent. They haven't needed to add elite young talent. They needed more veteran forwards. They need more, veterans on D. They need another Jason Zucker would have been nice this offseason. But again, when we talk about the offseason on a different episode probably, but to me it's just they weren't that bad, but they're also just not good. So this is kind of, they are what they are. Kevyn Adams, I guess we'll get into it. If he is the GM next year, it seems like he's probably going to be, but according to that press conference, it's not 100%, which I thought was interesting. That might have been one of the more interesting tidbits, I think, from that presser, was he still has to talk to Terry Pegula. He said Terry's going to have some tough questions, and we'll see what comes of that, coupled with the Elliot Friedman thing, saying he heard there's going to be some changes in the Sabres front office. Didn't necessarily say that would involve Kevyn Adams, but did say he wonders if there's a potential title change for Kevyn Adams, and if that's, Kevyn somehow failing upward to a bigger role or a bigger title and a real hockey GM comes in place. To me, that's the best case scenario. Not going to hold my breath though on that, because all indications are Kevyn Adams will be here next year. It's time to, for the second straight year, it's put up or shut up, and hasn't really been putting up.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I for sure. We'll get into the presser now, I guess. Again, I'm just going to kind of read off quotes, and Austin's going to react to them. Again, we listened to, I'd say, 75 to 80% of what Kevyn Adams and Lindy Ruff said, so there wasn't anything that was really earth-shattering, but some quotes that I wrote down that I'll just kind of go through quickly here for you guys that didn't catch the press conference, and Austin will kind of talk about what he thinks of what these mean. So first off, Adams talked for the first 5 or 10 minutes of this thing before Lindy Ruff was asked a question. So it was more of a lot of Kevyn Adams with a sprinkle of Lindy Ruff, but I'll let you guys know if it was a Lindy Ruff quote or not. So Kevyn Adams first started off with, culture is earned in your daily habits. Players have to look in the mirror first. They have to be authentic. You have to be authentic by committee. We need a lot of guys leading. So that was in response to talking about when was asked about the culture and asked about the leadership group, that they don't necessarily need an A to be leaders in the room. He talked about the meetings will come up. I talk to Terry every day. How many times have we heard that one? And that he will be asking me the hard questions. We have to win. I know that players know that.
Yeah. The culture is one thing that is just really funny. He kind of did say it. He did say, winning will help change the culture, which is true. I just look at the culture as not Tage and Tuck or Dahlin, right? We're talking about the core leaders, right? So their leadership council that they have. Dahlin's the captain. Tage, Tuck, Samuelson, and Cousins are the assistants, right? Let's look at Cousins. Gone. Your assistant captain gone. Not exactly a great endorsement of his quote unquote leadership. And that's not any bash on Dylan Cousins. That's nothing. That's just Adams chose and Ruff chose him to be a leader. And less than a year into him being part of that leadership council that they appointed, he's gone.
They needed the big shake up at the deadline, and that I guess is what Adams was talking about.
100%, which is fine. But that is an assistant captain. That's one of your quote unquote leaders that you designated at the start. The other one, Matthias Samuelsson, a guy who watched Tage Thompson get taken out by Nason, a guy who continuously did not step up when his game is supposed to be a physical game, things like that. Dahlin and Tuck, I don't think you're ever going to question their leadership and how they view this team, right? Tuck doing everything that he did this year. Dahlin is a workhorse. This team cannot play without him in the lineup. And Tage, I think, is a really solid leader as well. But Tage said it best in his locker room clean out. He said, my leadership style is more I let my actions do the talking. Well, scored 40-plus goals.
Really hot at the end of the year for Tage Thompson.
Really hot at the end of the year.
The line itself and him, I believe he had the most even strength goals in the league. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Since the Four Nations break, I think he was tied for the league leading total goals too.
Yeah, he was.
Or he's very close. So, in terms of their leadership, you talked about guys like Zucker, Greenway, McLeod even brought, there is leaders on this team, but it's just not a good look when two of your assistant captains, one's traded, and one, there was rumors earlier in the year of a letter being taken away, and we knew it wasn't Dahlin, Tuck, or Tage. so they left Samuelsson. I don't know. It's just it spurns the fact, like I said, they need veteran additions in this locker room. Dahlin and Tage are very good players. You have some good young players here, but you need more Jason Zuckers who are veteran players who can play. You need more of that. You need more. But on the flip side, as terms of leadership as well, you also just need good hockey players. The culture happens, it grows organically when you have a good team. Well, whose job is it to make the team good? The players, the coach, but the GM is the one who assembles the roster. So if your roster is not good enough, the players and the coach deserve blame too. But the GM, you have to wear that because you're the one who assembles this roster. And he's now on his, well, I'll give him 3 years because his first 2 years were rebuilding. But he's now on 3 years of just not having a good enough roster.
And I look at Alex Tuck. He broke a record for most block shots as a forward this year. So you talk about, what his presence means to Buffalo, and you know how much he cares about, the Sabres organization. But even for him, he needs a new contract, and how much longer is he going to want to be around if this team continues to lose? You'd know about, that thing that happened earlier in the year about the rumor about Rasmus Dahlin, having a meeting with management, whether that was true or not, that, he wants to start seeing some changes, or, he might be on his way out as well. Again, stuff gets thrown around all the time when you're losing like that, and it's just difficult to go through a season like they did with so many ups and downs in it, and then played better in the second half of the year. But again, it was too late by then. But you always hear Adams talk about, the accountability, and you talk about the leadership group, and get further into Lindy's comments a little bit more. But, these are the guys that you've locked up long term. Like this is your core group right here. Like it's not like these guys are going to be leaving anytime soon. Adams made sure to get all these deals done. He was able to move Cousins for another long-term contract around the same age as Josh Norris. But again, Josh Norris's oblique injury. Owen Power gets injured near the end of the year, pretty significant injury, should be ready for training camp. But there's a lot of questions that need answered. And you mentioned Jason Zucker. Like, this is no slight on Jason Zucker because he's a great leader and is a great person for within the room, but they were almost begging him to stay because they needed a guy like him, his presence in the room as a veteran guy that was an outsider, that was from, teams that had gone to the playoffs before, and he's been in this league a long time. But, you said you need more Jason Zuckers, but again, at the same time, they need to start developing their own Jason Zuckers, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think they are. Not enough, but I think they are. I think the problem is the guys that are developing into that, like the Zach Bensons of the world, they're still young, and it's hard to whatever. And when we do the indictment on the roster in our offseason preview, which I'm sure we're going to do, we can talk about that more because, if I'm Kevyn Adams, if I'm the GM of this team, my whole offseason, you got to look for a veteran forward here and there. But to me, I'm reshaping this decor from the top bottom. You have 2 defensemen in Power and Dahlin who you absolutely have to keep, and then anyone else can be had. I don't care. Jacob Bernard-Docker is a different story. He needs a contract, and he played extremely well in his limited sample size, so maybe 3. But again, nothing against Jacob Bernard-Docker. I'm not throwing him on the same level as Dahlin and Power, obviously. But in terms of just I don't know what they do. Kevyn Adams, again, we'll talk more if you want to throw some more tidbits from the presser there, but The presser was about as pointless I can remember a pre-off-season presser being, because he did not offer anything new. I need to be better. We need to be better. It's just not going to cut it in year 6. I know, the one quote he said where he said, I think I'm going to try to spend closer to the cap now going forward because of the way the roster shakes up or whatever. Dude, you're on year 14 of no playoffs. You don't try to spend closer to the cap. You go out and spend money to make your team better.
And I think it was brought up that, I think it was Mike Harrington that said every team in the playoffs is $1 or $2 million away from the cap, and you have all this cap space, and you're still trying to make the case that you're trying to win. And again, I've got all this written down, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, so I'll kind of draw it back here. But he kind of mentioned, and this ties into what you're talking about, you have to not overreact, but understand the urgency. He talked about Byram being, in terms of Byram's contract, because he's going to need a new extension. He's a really good player, and we're open to everything in regards to Bo and Byram. And he talked about, we did a better job playing better chunks of games or beating rather than beating ourselves. We had better situational awareness, better commitment, buy-in, and understanding, but it was too late when asked about playing better down the stretch. Do you have any thoughts to that?
It's the same, like, cool. I don't know. Tell me a legitimate reason why it took us that. If buy-in is really what you're going with here and why it took so long to figure it out, tell me why it took so long to buy in. And two, the first thing that he said, you don't want to overreact or whatever the hell he tried to say there. I don't know, man. You lost 13 games in a row. I don't think a groundbreaking trade or something during a 13-game losing streak is an overreaction.
Or even
Nothing
putting
against
somebody on waivers.
Yeah, nothing against the timing of the Cousins trade because I do like that trade long term still, I think, as long as Norris stays healthy. But you're telling me trading Cousins at Christmas instead of at the trade deadline wouldn't have been a shakeup that this team could have used? Like, that to me, trading Cousins at that time wouldn't have been an overreaction. Trading anyone wouldn't have been an overreaction. Waiving somebody wouldn't have been an overreaction. And, he can sit there and say all he wants. If I could go back, I would make a move, whether it's a trade or waive somebody or call somebody up. Yeah, well, you know what? If I could go back in time too, I'm sure there's something I would do differently. But guess what? You let it happen. And I forget who it was. Whatever reporter asked the question, they brought up the 8-game losing streak last year. Like, this is multiple years where there's been a 6, 7, 8+ game losing streak, and you've just sat there and done nothing. So that either tells me one of two things: you're not a very good GM, or you have restraints on you from your ownership. And ownership's a completely different problem. We could do a whole series of podcasts on the issues that ownership has with this team, because I think ownership is a big part of why we are where we're at. But at some point, Kevyn Adams, like, grow a pair and do something. Like he did with the Cousins trade finally. Like, that was a good trade. Norris remains to be seen still, but you made a core trade. And at its value, Senators fans can say what they want. Cousins has had, he's had some success there and good for him. But that trade needed to happen for the Sabres. It absolutely had to happen. And it did. It should not have taken as long as it did to get that trade done.
And Norris only played 3 games because of that oblique
injury.
But
I mean, let's be honest. I know, we can talk about that too. But in the short term, that Norris trade wasn't going to have a huge impact. Like, the Sabres weren't going to claw their way back to the playoffs after that Norris trade. That's more for the long term. And again, hopefully that works out too. But no one will argue that in Buffalo that a core trade like that needed to happen. And it took too long again. That's Adams's whole MO is he's not proactive, he's reactive, and when he reacts, it's far too late.
Lance Osowski asked him that question, actually.
It's a great question by Lance.
When asked about Norris's oblique injury when you made the trade, Adam says we were aware. He may have to come back. He may have come back too early, but we did it for the long term. So basically what you said there. Then we got into a Lindy quote, and this is a pretty long-winded one, so I'll read it off here. "I'm angry with myself for not getting the job done," said Lindy Ruff. "We got terrific goaltending. We scored, we didn't. I guess he's mixing two things here together. We got terrific goaltending and we scored. We just didn't get when we got the timely goals. Special teams and goaltending were better, but early in the year we didn't get all of that. We didn't get the timely goals. We didn't get the terrific goaltending, and we didn't score enough. We had trouble with adversity and high pressure situations in the beginning of the year, but by the end of the year we were able to win, and we didn't get there quick enough."
Yeah, it kind of just goes back to what I said before, is I don't know what took so long for everyone to buy in. And again, everyone, like, when the big guys played well, like they were bought in. I know defensively there's still some issues and whatever. I know, they talked about Luukkonen as well, and he owns, good on Luukkonen for owning that he needed to be better this year. But it's just like, Ruff, I'm not going to sit here and blame Lindy Ruff, but he deserves a lot of the blame. Like, you were the head coach, dude. You had some questionable lineup decisions. Your power play struggled again. You, according to you, right from your mouth, it took 60 games to get everyone to buy into what you were trying to do. I don't know. Like I said, it's Lindy Ruff. Absolutely, he only has 1 year left on his contract, so he's not going anywhere anyway.
But
I am also a firm believer that he deserves to be here for his last year, right? I also think that, he deserves to hire his own assistant coaches, but that also remains to be seen if there's going to be any moves made there. This whole cluster, fluff because I'm not going to swear, the whole cluster fluff that they've kind of created is just stems from a whole they are a poorly run organization. They're poorly run. That's all it is. Nothing against the people involved, but I come back to this. What GM on any team gets 5 years of not only no playoffs, but 5 years, and the last 3 years have been regression every year? What GM gets awarded that long of a career? And I know all the media members like to say the Sabres fired people too fast. You know what? Yeah, maybe they have fired some people too fast a time or two here and there. But if you really think that they should keep Kevyn Adams because they don't want to fire people too fast, like I just said, what GM gets 5 years with no playoffs, and the last 3 years have been regression? Not a single well-respected hockey team would allow that GM to be the GM for a sixth season. Not a single one.
I mean, how many years did Tim Murray and Jason Botterill get before they were fired?
Those might have been, I would hear an argument for they got fired too fast before I hear an argument for Kevyn Adams deserves a longer leash because he hasn't been here long enough. But yeah, they got, what did Murray get? 3, 2.5? Botterill 2? 3? They each got at least 3. They didn't get longer than 3, put it like that.
Oh, I thought you were still talking there. My bad.
No. It's just like I said. It's just I know we're trying to react to the press conference here, but I just keep coming back to they are a poorly run organization. Not even just hockey team, just organization.
Do you think Lindy Ruff, if this team would have somehow just tanked it and not played better the last 20 games, do you think he would have still been here, or do you think it didn't matter what happened, he was still coming back for the second year?
In that scenario, if they had tanked, he would still be here, I think, if Kevyn Adams is the GM, because they both have 1 year left on their contract. So for me, that kind of goes back to, again, Kevyn Adams has 1 year left. Dude has not earned an extension. Could you imagine the outcry if they announced Kevyn Adams signs another extension with this team?
Be as good as the Terry Pegula happy birthday post.
Right? Like, the only thing I could think of is, and that's where the Elliot Friedman theory makes a lot of sense, is you promote Adams to a different role for the last year of his contract. You hire a real GM. And, you give Lindy Ruff, he is a franchise legend. You give him the last year of his contract to see if it works. And if he's interested, if it works out and he's interested in staying, you figure it out from there. But to me, it's just, we can't be sitting here 5 years into Kevyn Adams' GM tenure and still be saying the same things, right? Like, the fan base has had enough. The players are coming close to had enough. I said the other day, I don't think it will actually lead to change, but if I'm Dahlin and Thompson, I am putting all the pressure in the world on Adams and Terry Pegula to get serious, because if they don't get serious, I know you said they signed these guys to long-term deals. That doesn't matter anymore, man. The second there's another year like this, both those players are asking for a trade, and Terry Pegula mostly just Terry Pegula, because I imagine, another GM would be fired. Terry Pegula cannot survive trading of Jack Eichel in 2000 and what was he traded? 2019, 2020? How long has he been on Vegas?
21.
Okay. 21. And if next year's 26, trading 2 franchise cornerstones, 2 captains, because they both requested a trade, no owner can survive that. The fan base would completely implode on itself. It's already on the verge of imploding on itself and saying, screw this. We can sit here and break down this press conference as much as we want, but to me, it's until the owner has a changed mentality, I don't see anything changing for this team.
Are you currently looking for work in the Niagara region? If so, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Centre, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road in Niagara Falls. Their many free services include a fully staffed resource area open to the public, resume and cover letter writing, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment, training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, Better Jobs Ontario information, and registration assistance. Check out their website at ehc.on.ca or call 905-358-0021 for more information. The Niagara Employment Help Centre, helping people find work since 1983. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
Whether you just brought home a new furry member of the family or would like help finding something new for your picky eater, maybe you've done your research and want to upgrade your pet's nutrition from an entry-level food, the staff at any of the global pet food stores in the Niagara region would love to help you out. Let them show you why our lesser-known premium brands are so much better than highly advertised big corporate brands. The value from the brands we carry is not only visible in the health and vitality in your pet, but also because you won't need to feed as much as with the other brands. Better nutrition from a longer-lasting bag. We hope to see you at one of the following locations across Niagara: 3643 Portage Road in Niagara Falls, 160 Highway 20 in Font Hill, as well as 400 Scott Street and 344 Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Global Pet Foods, where pets are undeniably part of the family.
Wild Bill's Auto Repair is your local center for auto maintenance and repair in the Niagara region. Since 2012, Wild Bill's Auto Repair and Body Shop has been helping customers stay safe and confident on the road, knowing their vehicles in top running condition through their services. Located at 7868 Oakwood Drive in Niagara Falls, the garage started as a tribute to the owner's father, William Robert Hunter, who passed away, continuing the same community spirit and high level of service which customers came to expect from him back at Hunter's Auto Repair. Their multi-award-winning auto shop has earned the trust of the Niagara community with its fair treatment of all customers, who can feel confident they'll get the trustworthy advice and repairs during their visit. Their experienced crew loves meeting new people and looks forward to forming a lasting partnership for the care of your cars. To find out more or to book service, contact them today. 905-358-7868 or wildbillsauto.ca. Wild Bill's Auto Repair, helping customers stay safe and confident on the road since 2012.
Celebrating a birthday, wedding, graduation, or just watching the big game, Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano is there to satisfy your pizza needs. Serving handmade Italian pizzas created with the freshest top quality ingredients, loaded subs, and their famous chicken wings. Platinum Award recipients of Community Votes Niagara for Best Pizza and Wings in all of the Niagara region 3 years running. Open 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week from their brand new location at 7156 Drummond Road in Niagara Falls. All payment options accepted to fit your convenience. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery. Place your order today at 905-374-4400 or check out their online menu for the best quality pizza and wing combos you'll find in Niagara at carmine'spizzeria.ca. You've tried the rest, why not try the best? Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, proudly serving the Niagara community since 2013.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
Hey, hey, here we go, it's hockey night in Buffalo. Hey, hey, here we go, the boys in blue, white and gold. Hey, hey, here we go, make some noise, get in the zone. All for one and one for all, let's hear you from your heart and soul. And we will stand, raising our hands, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo. We will be here till the end, saying, let's go Buffalo, let's go Buffalo.
And we also talked about the skeleton crew they have compared to most teams as far as the front office goes. Like, remember when Terry Pegula talked about, oh, well, all we need is a GM and a head coach when he had Botterill and Ralph Kruger. And then when they brought Adams in, then they finally were able to let him hire Jason Karmanos to be the assistant GM to run Rochester. But it still feels like they don't have the manpower that some of these other franchises have. And again, is that owner based? Is that Kevyn Adams saying he doesn't need more help? Again, we don't know the whole ins and outs of what their conversations are. Apparently, they talk every day. But like, does Terry just not want to pay more staff or more people to help out Kevyn Adams? I mean, again, I don't necessarily think sometimes you can have too many cooks in the kitchen, but obviously what they have right now hasn't got them to where they want to be. So if Adams says that they haven't done good enough job, then like you said, are they going to promote him to a bigger role and then get somebody else in that role to help him out? It seems like there has to be something. Is that a cry? Like, is that a sort of cry from Adams in a small way of saying that, you know, I need more assistance in getting this job done?
So two things. One, the skeleton crew is 100% on ownership, because if you remember the Tim Graham piece years back where they exposed the economic efficient whatever the hell the 30 was, presentation they had, where basically they were going to gut the Sabres hockey operations staff and try to make it as efficient and economically advantageous as possible. Like I said, to me, it's the ownership needs to change their mentality in order to actually get some real progress. And if it comes out, tomorrow, day after, next couple days, Kevyn Adams is being moved to a different part of the organization, and I don't know. I'll just throw this name out there because he's someone that has been thrown around the hollows of Sabres Twitter. I don't necessarily think it's a great option or bad. I don't know. But they say, hey, Adams is the president. Jarmo Kekalainen is now the GM. To me, it's not, the end-all be-all. But to me, that's at least a signal that Terry Pegula has sort of changed his brain. Because for whatever the reason, since Jason Botterill, the Jason Botterill thing blew up in his face, Terry has been very anti hockey guys. Doesn't want people who will challenge him, doesn't want people who will tell him, something he doesn't want to hear. And I think that's why Adams has had as long of a leash as he did. Granted, like I said, there was progress under Adams and Granato, but the second it started to fall apart, we already said Ruff was Adams's third head coach that he hired because, he promoted Granato to interim and then hired him. Second head coach. He promoted Granato to the interim head coach and then signed him full time and then fired Granato and hired Lindy. He didn't hire Kruger, obviously that was Botterill. So it's just, to me, I don't like to say these words because it's very harsh and not fair to Adams, the human being, but he's a yes man. He was the one that had to go fall on the sword after all the 50th anniversary debacles that came out with their alumni jerseys and things like that. Adams was the one who had to go on the media tour. He is someone that Terry Pegula trusts. He is someone that Terry Pegula can not only talk to, but control is not the right word, but he feels comfortable with Kevyn Adams, and I think that's why Adams has this long leash. And to me, Terry Pegula, you're going to have to get uncomfortable. Running a well-run organization means you have to get uncomfortable. You can't be comfortable anymore. It's been too long.
Yeah, you're going to have those uncomfortable conversations and actually talk about pushing that Kevyn Adams says that, Terry is frustrated and doesn't like where they're at. Well, I hope so, because obviously it hasn't worked for the last 14 years through, 3 different GMs and 6 different head coaches. So getting further here with the press conference here, Austin, we got about 15, 20 minutes left. The cap is a magnet was an interesting quote that Adam said. If you make a decision in the summer for a 1-year plan, it could hurt you down the road. It's never been a talking point from Terry about cap space or no cap space. He gives me every resource possible.
Dude,
is that your favorite so far?
You got to make the playoffs. Spend money for 1 year and make the playoffs, and then maybe worry about it. Remember last year when he said he wasn't spending to the cap because he needed to sign all his RFAs to long-term extensions? Can you tell me which RFAs got long-term extensions last summer?
None.
Yeah. No JJ Peterka extension. No Bo Byram extension.
Jack Quinn.
No Jack Quinn extension, which probably thankfully worked out. But you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here, man? You need that cap space to sign players to future contracts that didn't get signed. So, like, the cap, I know people like to say spending money doesn't necessarily equate to success, which in a vacuum might be true. But like you just said right there, Mike Harrington pointed out, everyone points it out. Teams with $7 million in cap space or whatever the hell the Sabres had don't make the playoffs. They just don't. Unless it's like the exception, not the rule. And it's pretty much proof. The Sabres didn't make it this year. They didn't spend money. They bought out Jeff Skinner, which in hindsight was a good move, but you saved all that money for this year and didn't use it. And guess what? His buyout for the next 2 years is going to get higher and higher. This was the year to take advantage of the Jeff Skinner buyout, and they just didn't. That's malpractice. Like I said, we're trying to break down the press conference here, and it's basically just turned into me ripping on Kevyn Adams saying he shouldn't be the GM anymore. But God, he's just like, can you give me one argument why he should be the GM next year?
He has a plan.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Well,
No, I know you're not arguing for him to be the GM. I know you're not, obviously. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's kind of where we're at with this organization is.
They keep talking, but nothing changes.
No.
Well, I mean, they traded for Josh Norris, but and no disrespect to Josh Norris, I think he's a fantastic player. That's not just all of a sudden going to fix all the franchise's problems by getting Dylan Cousins out of the room.
Like, hey, like I said with the change in mentality from the ownership, the Norris thing, okay, Norris's contract was worth a little bit more than Cousins in terms of cap it and real dollars. Okay, so he's spending a little bit more money there. Small tidbit. Again, Pegula doesn't deserve any benefit of the doubt right now, but okay. He explored an Elias Pettersson trade. Elias Pettersson makes $11 million. Okay. You want to really show that you've maybe changed a little bit and you're starting to get serious? Fire your GM. Hire a hockey guy. And I know we can sit here and talk about all this. Like, I don't love these names. I don't love the Ken Hollands. I don't love the Jarmo Kekalainens. But you know what? Maybe that's what this team needs. Maybe this team needs I hate the old boys club, but maybe this team needs someone from the old boys club to come in and be like, what the hell is going on here? Because
I'm just never for retreads, but again, the Sabres really they've gone outside the box the last 2 or 3 times, so maybe that's what they need.
For GMs, it just hasn't worked. It was Tim Murray who was aggressive and made too many moves.
First-time GM.
Yep, it was Jason Botterill who was also a first-time GM. Came from a Stanley Cup pedigree organization. Didn't work. Made a couple nice moves, but ultimately, didn't do enough. And then it was Kevyn Adams, who was the president of the Harbor Center, or whatever his real job was. I don't remember. 3 straight GMs have been first-time GMs. That your next GM can't be a first-time GM.
No, absolutely not. Going further, he talked about it. I have a lot of faith in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He's going to bounce back. We need to be better defensively in front of him, but he knows he wants and needs to be better. It's not good enough. I felt that we should have been a playoff team right now, and we are closer than further.
Yeah, well.
Closer in what way?
Yeah, because you were close 2 years ago and you missed by a point, and you haven't sniffed that since.
Any thought on
and
the
now
UPL
look,
thing?
I know last year was not Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's fault. Last year, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen was very good. This year, at times, he was very good. But it just comes back to when you're getting goaltending. Like, look at, again, they didn't. Reimer played extremely well down the stretch, except for maybe a couple starts here and there. But when Reimer played well down the stretch, they won. If Luukkonen just played .900 save percentage hockey, the Sabres probably have 4 or 5 more wins.
And at one point,
I was going to say, now, Luukkonen is not solely to blame. The team does absolutely have to play better defensively in front of him. No doubt about that. But Luukkonen's numbers were not good this year.
And I remember you talking earlier in the year, and again, he talks about UPL, knowing he needs to be better. I remember you said in one episode that it's okay for goalies to make high danger scoring chance saves.
Yeah,
you said it's your goaltender is able to make a timely save when needed. And again, this isn't trying to be a spite on UPL because he did have stretches where he played well, but it was just not consistent enough from what our new expectations of him were after such a strong year last year. And then James Reimer getting 11 of the last 21 games down the stretch really showed that, they went with the hot hand and Reimer was playing better than UPL down the stretch. And Reimer's been in this league a long time, but, he's a mid-30s goaltender now on the downward of his career as a backup goaltender that they got back from waivers after putting him on waivers, was claimed by Anaheim, got him back. And then you've got Levi marinating in Rochester, who's look like they're going to go on a playoff run. So how much longer are you going to keep him down there? But you also just gave UPL an extension. So it's a tough situation to be in. I think if he bounces back next year, it's not an issue. But if he struggles another season, then you really have to have the conversation of, okay, what is going to be our plan moving forward there?
Yeah, and that was Friedman's last point, was there are teams who believe Luukkonen's available. I'm not ready to move on from him just yet. I am ready to challenge him with a veteran backup goalie. Like a real veteran backup goalie. Nothing against James Reimer, but like if we could get a 33-year-old veteran backup goalie instead of a 37-year-old, that would be great. But it's just like...
How long do you keep Levi down?
I give him 1 more year down there next year. Miller played 100-plus games in the AHL. Levi's at like 50-plus. Or, you give Luukkonen till Christmas next year, and if he hasn't figured it out, you explore that. I don't know. I don't necessarily know what to do. They could tell me today they're trading Luukkonen, calling up Levi, and signing a veteran goalie, and I think I'd still be okay with it. Because goaltenders are very weird, and they're very good and very bad at the same time. So, I'm not married to Luukkonen, but I don't know. Goaltending is an area. Goaltending and defense is what this offseason should revolve around. The problem with goaltending is with Luukkonen, say they do go out and sign Jake Allen. Let's just say they sign Jake Allen to a 2-year deal. Someone they can rely on to start when Luukkonen falters. How does Luukkonen handle that pressure?
Yeah.
He seemed to handle the pressure of Reimer a little bit better later as the season went on. He had 3 nice starts to end the year. But I need more than 3 nice starts.
Here's a quote from Lindy. It's players that believe in each other and don't complain about each other when talking about the culture. Culture is a team-first attitude. Our group was disappointed, really hard learning, but picked ourselves up in the last 20 or so games. But that's from the head coach in Lindy Ruff saying that, that sometimes maybe they were pointing the finger at each other instead of at themselves about why they weren't getting better. And that culture needs to be a team first attitude, which when asked about, what was the issue with the culture.
Yeah.
I mean, we've basically already went over that, but that was something that I thought was interesting that Lindy, actually acknowledged that there was finger pointing at times that needed to be rectified. One more page of quotes here, Austin, and then, you've been fired up here for the most of the episode, but for more from Adams, frustration out of all of us of where we should be on paper. Take that as you wish. Make sure we prioritize the right things. It's on me and I will fix it. Well, we'll see. We've made several, there's a Lindy quote after that I wrote down, but that was a quote from Adams. We should be better on paper. Make sure we prioritize the right things, and it's on me, and I will fix it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, sure. Let's see it then. Right? I don't know. I would, do a couple more quotes because then we can just kind of sum up everything at the end.
Okay. Here's what I got left. Zucker had the ability in keeping it into perspective. He helped Yuri Kulich a ton on and off the ice. So again, Zucker's presence in the room helping those young players. This was a quote from Lindy. We made several changes system-wise during the year. Power play didn't help us. The last 40 games, moving people around helped. The puck management was better. Us losing Greenway hurt the penalty kill. Big individual mistakes hurt us more than structure.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope they would have changed their systems in place because the power play was god-awful. Like I said, for the coaching aspects, it's hard for me to blame a lot on Lindy because, again, he didn't get to hire a single assistant coach, which is just utterly insane, and to me further proof that they're not a well-run organization because that's just insane for your head coach to not get to hire any of his assistants and wouldn't fly. It's probably the reason why they brought Lindy Ruff back because maybe he was the only person that could stomach that for some reason. I don't know. This press, yeah, like I said, we've been saying it for 3-4 years now with Kevyn Adams and them. It's show me something. Adams made a couple nice moves this year. You need to make 3-4 more.
And I'll end on a positive, Austin, because you know me. In a tremendous rookie season, Yuri had a tremendous rookie season, and talking about Yuri Kulich. Long term, he's a center in our mind. He matched up against other teams' top lines as a 20-year-old. I want our guys, I'll leave the last quote for the end, but he talked about Yuri Kulich's development on that top line, and as a centerman, they view him as a center long term. So it seems like they're high on what Yuri Kulich is going to be a part of this team. But again, a lot to ask for a 20-year-old if they think that that's the top 6 addition to their roster that they didn't have at the beginning of the year when he was called up. But
Yeah, interesting that they said. I mean, I also view Yuri Kulich as a center, so I just wonder what that means with Tage for long term because he was a winger with Kulich, and if they view Norris as a center,
And
to me that leaves Tage on the wing,
and
which is fine. He played really well.
I believe Kulich, Tuck, and Thompson were the highest scoring first line in the NHL.
Yeah, and we'll talk about if we have like an off-season primer or whatever. The second Zach Benson was on the wing with Kulich and Thompson as well. That line also was extremely well because it's good for Zach Benson and bad for the team that the 20-year-old, 19 is he even 20 yet? I don't know if he's 20 yet. Zach Benson's their best defensive forward, and not exactly a great sign. McLeod is very they have some good defensive players, but like Zach Benson is just if Zach Benson figures out how to put the puck in the net, which with his style of play, getting to the dirty areas, it's going to start happening. That kid is going to be so damn good. He already is so damn good, but you're going to see the raw production numbers start to skyrocket, which you saw when he started playing with Kulich and Thompson. So again, it's a lot to ask Kulich and Benson to take another leap. To me, they're very capable of it. But if that's your top line next year, I don't think we'll have any issues with it. But I hope they have a contingency plan in place this time around, just in case, because regression happens. But you can't let it happen in another. We must make the playoffs year because it's been two straight of those, and there was never a backup plan in place.
Yeah, I think Benson took a stride in his 200-foot game this year. The point production maybe wasn't what we thought it would be, but again, there were so many other factors and issues that happened with this lineup this year. It was going to be hard for him to do that. But again, if Tage is going to be on the wing, that means you're putting a lot of faith in Yuri Kulich and Josh Norris down the middle. Maybe Tage can go there if injuries do happen. Either of those guys, that's a possibility.
It's a good safety valve to have a guy like Tage who can play the wing and center. And McLeod really stepped up as a second line center down the stretch.
He was phenomenal.
So he's phenomenal. He's if we ever do like a positives from this year outside of the Dahlin and Tage, I think McLeod is probably right up there.
Yeah.
Because the dude was just phenomenal this year. Not an elite point scoring forward, but just so good at so many different things. And, his end of the year press conference was refreshing. To hear a guy say, "I love it here." And that was a guy who was playing in Edmonton before with Connor McDavid and stuff. I know that's stupid and sappy to get over that, but like McLeod's just such a damn good hockey player. He's the type of player they need more of. So when you do have one here who's an RFA who says he loves it here, do everything you can to lock that down long term.
For sure, and we'll get more into that in our season-ending show going into the off-season for sure. Last quote here, Austin, before we wrap it up. "I want our guys to get used to playing in June," said Kevyn Adams. That's why he sent down Yuri Kulich to Rochester. I think when he was asked about sending him down and a couple other players down to Rochester, wanted them to get that experience. That I definitely enjoyed that one. I want our guys to get used to playing in June because that's what we want up here with the Sabres.
How about we let them get used to playing in May first? But no, in all seriousness with Kulich, if it was that or the Worlds, I don't think there was a wrong answer. I am glad he's going down to the playoff run, though, because nothing against the Worlds. The Worlds are a lot of fun. Represent your country is a lot of fun. But getting to him to go on a playoff run with being the veteran guy in Rochester, like he's not like a Mason Jobst or a Brett Murray, but he's an NHL player who had NHL success. So getting to add him to that AHL lineup and letting him go down there with some of the other up-and-comers like the Consta Helleniuses, the Noah Ostlands, Isaac Rosen, guys like that, Devin Levi, it'll be good. I hope Rochester goes on a deep run because that would be good for Coolidge long-term. But yeah, it's just nothing against Kevyn Adams, but I want to get used to guys playing in June. God damn, dude. How about you let Dahlin and Tage and them get used to playing in June, man? How about you help your team out and help them play in June? Whatever. I don't know. I'm done. I can't.
That's it.
He's just. Geez.
So I hope everybody enjoyed Austin's reaction, as painful as it was, to some of these quotes from Kevyn Adams' end-of-season press conference with Lindy Ruff. Again, we'll probably be back here doing our end-of-season preview, or end-of-season episode previewing the off-season. Whether maybe if the Sabres win the draft lottery, that might be something to look at. Pickens, they have the 7th best odds going into the draft lottery in a few weeks, so we'll have to wait and see with that. Maybe we'll be back for an emergency episode of the Sabres now with the number 1 overall pick, and that might be able to change things. But regardless of that, we'll be back with some reaction at some point before we wrap up for the our off season here on the network. But again, sporadic episode just because the Sabres, obviously, again, we're pretty much out of it after the deadline. But it was nice to see them play better down the stretch. But again, there's positives and negatives with that. And we'll see if Kevyn Adams remains in his GM role the next time that we come back on to record, or if they bring in some extra help as well. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But if there is any major shakeups or anything like that happens with the Sabres coaching staff or front office, we'll be sure to come back here and react to it like we did today with the end-of-season press conference. But Austin, any final words before we wrap up?
Yeah, apologies for the sporadicness of my brain today, but it's just this type of press conference. Staring down another season of Kevyn Adams being the GM, I don't know. I don't know how we're going to do it. I don't know how we're going to survive it. I don't know how the organization's going to survive it, but goddamn if we're not going to be here in September saying this team's going to make the playoffs again.
It's been a long 14 years, and it's taken its toll on a lot of different people, but again, their actions are going to speak louder than any great words or things that they could say to orate to us in the media and or the fan base about what this team needs to do to be better. But that's going to wrap it up for our reaction to the Sabres end-of-season press conference and exit interviews right here on Sabres Semantics on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Thank you to everybody that listened to us in audio today in your favorite on-demand audio platform. Apologies for those watches and video. Some technical difficulties will get fixed for the next episode. Make sure to give us a follow on X at Sabres Semantics, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok as well by searching the Armchair GM Sports Network. Have a great Easter long weekend. This will be out on Sunday. For Austin Broad, my name is Brandon Caputo. That's it, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.